Are you a fountain or a drain? We're going to play a little bit off of what we did last week, but I just want to introduce something. Thankfully, we've got some good trades coming through. I thought this morning it's going to be another hot one, and it's still plenty warm, but we want to leave time for our fellowship. Hope you'll stay after, and there's got to be some reward for having to listen to me talk. And so stick around, we'll feed you. And a little smaller group than we've had the last couple of Sundays. That's kind of that ebb and flow. Honestly, part of it feels more casual, whatever. It's like, oh, okay, it's just kind of a smaller group thing. We love the larger groups too. But you know what, we'll take the blessings, whatever size they come. Are you a fountain or a drain? I had some statistics that I wanted to show you that in America, almost 90% of households own a Bible. But when you look at the percentage of people who read those Bibles on a regular basis, it's single digits. Single digits. First of all, let's not be in that statistic, okay? Be spending time in the Word. But it kind of makes this saying, you may have heard this saying, you may be the only Bible that some people ever read. And what we mean by that, last week I had someone ask me, made a comment last week about that there's only one gospel, and I thought there were 4 gospels, and I'm so glad the person came and asked, and we got to clarify that, and I'll admit, it's kind of a geeky preacher thing, so what I explained and what I mean by that is, there's only one gospel. There are 4 accounts of that gospel, okay, 4 renditions of that gospel, or 4 writers that tell us their versions of the good news about Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I want to suggest I was wrong when I said there are 4. There are 5. And I'm not talking about the lost gospel of Judas. I'm not talking about the gospel, the lost Gnostic gospels. Some of you watch History Channel a little too much, you know what I'm talking about, right? And I'm not talking about those things. I'm saying there's Matthew, there's Mark, there's Luke, there's John, and there's you. That for some people, they're going to get everything that they know about Jesus, about the good news about Jesus, from your interaction with them. Now, we'd love for that to affect them in a positive way, bring them here where they get to hear, from the text itself. But we'd love the idea that we might be, or maybe it scares you, that you might be the only gospel or version of the gospel that people are going to hear. And a lot of what we talk about is that question, are you a fountain or a drain? Before we look at a couple scriptures this week, I want to remind you of last week. If you weren't here, you're still going to get this, but it's kind of a flow over from what we did last week. Remember last week we talked about how God fills us, if we're Christians, right? He fills us all the way full, all the way to the top with blessings and love and some of those great things that Kevin mentioned during our communion time. We also talked about others who, we've got a bunch of junk in our cups, don't we? Right? We've got some sin in there we know that is blocking God's blessing in our lives. We've got some struggles. We've got some burdens we carry that we don't need to carry. And we've got all this stuff, and we think, but you know what? But God's still going to fill me, right? Yes, because His filling of you has little to do with how good you are. It has to do with how good He is. And one cup looks just as full as the other, but they're not equally filled. Again, we won't belabor that point, because if we took all the rocks out of here, this one's only about half full. And we're actually blocking God's blessings. And last week we said, you know what? Get some of the rocks. Get that out. Hi, Lucy. I didn't know you were here. Everyone say aloha to this. Put a smile on my face. See, you don't think I look at you. You look at me when I talk, but I look at you too, right? And you wake up in the back. Okay, what happens is what? We challenged you last week, right? Was what? Get rid of some of that sin. Get rid of something that God wants to say, hey, that's taking up blessing space. That's taking up love space. Get that out of there so that I can fill you on up. So really, this was only half the story. You see, God does not only want to fill you, He wants to overflow you. And He wants to overflow you into others just like a fountain, right? And so we have that idea that the story is really not full, it's not complete, until we're overflowing with God's love, with God's good news, and we're filling someone else as God fills us. You go to the Holy Land. I hope I get to do that someday. I'm going to cross over again. Go to the Holy Land someday. You can go and visit the Dead Sea. They call it the Dead Sea because it's at this very low place. It's actually below sea level. Okay? And so all the rivers and the mountains that surround that area flows down into the Jordan River Valley. That's where Jesus gets baptized. Okay? You can kind of picture that in your mind. And so all the rivers flow into this, but it never flows out. So basically it's a giant mud puddle. Okay? It's a giant pothole in the street where water flows into it, but never flows out of it, and so it's dead. Not many things can live there because the salinity, the salt level in it is so high. But one of the fun things about it is also that you can float even more easily than you can in the Pacific Ocean. That literally you can float. I'm not very buoyant, and I've had people work with me. I've had swimming coaches and who said, "Oh no, you're just not doing it right then." And so I get in the swimming pool, and they might work with me. Okay, oh, you're leaning your head like this, and after about 20, 30 minutes, they would say, "You can't float." I said, I told you, I'm just not very buoyant. I don't know what that is, okay? And so, of course, in the salt water, I'm a little more buoyant, float a little better. If I go there, you can just sit on top. You actually float higher in the Dead Sea because it's the salt percentage than you would in the Pacific Ocean. But what happens is everything flows in, nothing flows out, so it's dead. They call it the Dead Sea. Again, a giant mud puddle, right? What can live in a mud puddle? Not too much, right? Maybe the Japanese fighting fish, that's the rumor, they live in the mud puddles. And that's why when you have those betta fish at home, right, they live in that thing and you can't kill those things. That's why you buy them, right? And especially as your child's first pet. That's one of the reasons we do that. But as Christians, we're not to be like the Dead Sea. He doesn't just want to flow into us, he wants to flow through us. Now this month, we're going to focus on church. We rarely do that. I don't think I've ever done a 4-week series here on focusing on church. Typically, I want you to focus on you in your marriages, if you're married, your boyfriend or girlfriend relationships. I want you to focus in your parenting, if you have children. I want you to focus at work, in your relationships with colleagues, supervisors, subordinates. I want you to be Jesus there primarily. I want you to do it out in life. We don't meet here to talk about how to do here better. It's not a religion thing, it's a life thing. And living out your religion of Christianity has more to do with Monday through Saturday than it does with Sunday morning. Why we come here is to cheer each other on, to get our compass set again, and to go, oh yeah, I can do it, because I've got Jesus and I got the Holy Spirit helping me, and I can go back out and shine my light. Remember we played with fire a couple weeks ago, and I'm filled, and I can go, so I need my cup filled so that I can go out and pour out onto other people. Let's look at a couple of scriptures, all right? Click me through to the first one here. Psalm 36, verse 9. Psalm 36, verse 9. And we have this idea. Do you have the text? I don't know if I have the text down. Okay, just Psalm 36, verse 9. Okay? Can I borrow that? I'm going to read this out of the New Living Translation. And some of you are in the blue Bibles there. I'm just going to read a couple verses, and we're going to really kind of just more introduce this idea. So come back throughout the weeks, and we'll play this out. Okay? Psalm 36, verse 9. So I want to go slowly on these 2 or 3 verses because we're not going to cover too much ground, so I want to go deep. Verse 9. For you, this is the psalmist, this is the Psalm of David, writing about God. For you, God, are the fountain of life, the light by which we see. We talked about light, so he says there that God, you're the fountain. You're the fountain. We ask, are you a fountain or a drain? See, drains only want one thing. They only want one thing. Where's the fountain? Because there's nothing to flow. I can't suck all the energy out of something. I can't flush things down me. I can't suck all the positive energy. I can't suck all the thanksgiving. I can't be negative unless I know where the fountain is and I want to drain the fountain. The fountain, if you're a fountain, you only care about one thing, the source. Like, picture a fountain. Okay, we're going to give you a picture here in just a moment. Let me hold off on that because I'll help you picture it, all right? I know it's early, brain's still not firing and everything, okay? So I'll help you out with your imagination. But the fountain cares about the source. When you really think about it, the fountain, when I say, what's a fountain? And you'll say, oh, it's these things where the water shoots up, and those of you who will admit to having gone to Vegas, okay, you've seen the Bellagio, you've seen the California, you know the fountains that are there, right? Maybe you've gone to Epcot Center and you have the dancing fountain thing going on there. Maybe it's just through town, and there's some fountains around that you see, and that's a fountain, how the water squirts, but it's really not. If you turn the water off, if you turn the source off, the fountain is very unimpressive. It's just a series of pipes. and they're kind of rusted because water goes through them. So it's just these kind of dry pipes. Without the source, the fountain is not beautiful. But connected to the source and the water going through those things, kind of like the dancing waters you've seen, then it makes it something beautiful, all right? Hang with me. I'm painting this picture. We'll apply it for us in a little bit. Okay, another scripture. Proverbs 10:11. I want this on the screen because I want you to say it with me, all right? Wisest man that ever lived wrote this. Proverbs. Read it with me. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. So God is the source. He's the fountain. But what happens is it's going to flow through us, not just onto us, not just in us, not to fill us, not to you, through you. We're more like a river than we are a mud puddle. We're like a fountain than a drain, all right? So let me help you with your imagination. Give me the next picture. So are you a drain? Okay? Now there's nothing pretty about this drain, is there? In fact, there's nothing, okay, those of you who have little kids, you know, they're kind of like puppies. They interact with their world through what organ of their body? Their mouth, their tongue, right? And so everything they want to put in their mouth, that's how they're looking at it, it's how they taste it, it's how they interact with it. One of the worst things, though, is whenever you realize that the things they're touching are their mouth. And moms, you're kissing those lips. But you know they find stuff all around the house, and you know the dog leaves little things around that it's not supposed to leave, and you know they reach for that stuff, and that's where it all wants to go, right? Isn't that the way a drain is? There's just junk that goes down this, right? It's ugly, and it just looks to all the bad stuff goes there. Recently we had the big rains, so you know, like this one says, this leads to the ocean, right? And so what happened? You could look out at the beautiful blue ocean. You would see this brown river, right, that would come out of the drains or river mouths or the street drainage, and you had to give it a couple days before you could get in the water. That's what the drain process is. John. Let's take a look at a fountain. What's the next picture? You recognize that fountain? All right, that's right here. Okay. Now, I want you to interact with me a little bit. When we talk about what a drain does, we're repulsed by it. We're not drawn to it, right? You never get a picnic and go sit around a drain and eat, right? But what do we do? What's our reaction or the pull for us as humans to fountains? What are different ways that we interact with that we'll do around a fountain? What will that be? Tell me. Okay, one of them is, this is my favorite one. If you are a selfish clod that cares nothing about anyone else in the human race, this single point should motivate you enough to be a fountain. People throw money at you. Okay? Right? You go up, you got any change? Oh yeah, here, you know, you run out of pennies and the kids still want, like, what? I got it's all silver now, you know? So alright, here's a quarter, throw it in there, right? And so the first thing, when you're a fountain, people are going to throw money at you. We do that, don't we? At fountains. What else do we do around fountains?
Pictures.
Sorry?
Pictures.
Okay, we take pictures. Never once have you gotten down by the storm drain and gotten down there and told you to get down there, let me take a picture of you by that. But right? But if you're at the park, you're in town, you're at the park, you have a picnic. If that's nothing to do, we go have a picnic there, right? Around it. You can tell, oh, stand in front of the fountain, let me take a picture, right? There's something beautiful there. They throw money, we throw money at it, we take pictures at it, we take picnics by it. Give me one or two more. Okay, refreshment. Do you know originally, water fountain, including on the island, but really it's broad, it started in Europe, is kind of where they began, that they began as a way they were drinking fountains. So now a drinking fountains, we know what we do, what we have in the back room and that kind of thing. But public fountains were originally designed, and it would have kind of a spout you could go up and drink out of your hand. It was for refreshment, for water, as a public drinking fountain. Over time, of course, they become more elaborate, more beautiful, and things like that. And so part of what you do, in some places you're going to find little naked Samoan kids, you know, swimming around in the fountain, right? But why? It's refreshing. So we go there for refreshment, whether we're drinking from it or playing in it, or whatever that might be, right? Okay, give me one more. Let's give you one more. What do we do around fountains? Oh no, I'm just playing the time music. I'm waiting for an answer. Okay. She was like, sing? We sing around the fountain? We whistle? We whistle around the fountain? We do lots, it draws us, right? Very different than a drain. Now let's talk about this, being a fountain versus a drain. Now obviously, I fought, even though I went through, I cut stuff out of my notes that I was going to say, because I want to apply it to church. But this morning I want to make it more generic than that, because it's our Aloha Sunday. And so talk about, how you do the work yourself, applying it in your family, applying it at work, applying it, as you go to the store, those kind of things with your friends. But then ultimately, the next several weeks, we're going to talk about applying being a fountain at church. Being a fountain at church. If we don't take care of the plumbing underneath the fountain, then no one can enjoy the beauty that comes from it. So we're going to turn the fountain off for some maintenance and work on the plumbing a little bit for this month, okay? So some of the things that we'll talk about is how to know the difference between being a drain or a fountain. The idea is that every one of us, it needs to be a fountain that we bless as a fountain. Again, at work and families, but also at church. Do you know that every one of you is a blessing to this church? Every one of you is a blessing to this church. In fact, this morning, each and every single one of you will bless this church. But there's a difference, because some of you are fountains and some of you are drains. Some of you bless this church when you come. Some of you will bless this church when you leave. But either way, you're going to bless this church. So the goal, of course, is to be a fountain and be one when you come in, it's brighter, there's more refreshment, people are gathered to you. Maybe they want to throw money at you, maybe they want a picture taken with you, or maybe they just know. Overall, we have a fountain personality in our church. All the time, yes, are telling, wow, there's such a great energy, there's such a positive encouragement. Even if they're not really interested in anything about Jesus yet, they come like, oh, there's just something good there. And it's because you bring that spirit with you. It's because of who you are. So we want to crank the volume of the water that shoots through us a little bit more, and that's what we'll focus on over the next month or so, all right? So the difference between a drain and a fountain. And you know some of the differences, right? I'm not on Facebook. I'm smarter than that. Okay, but some of you are on Facebook. Okay? Because I know if I get on Facebook, people will find me from my past. See? Some of you are on Facebook, and are you wondering why no one's commenting on your post? They have you hidden. They're your friends, but they've hidden you. You know why? Because every single thing you post there is negative. And every time someone reads your post and your status, it's just something that just sucks a little more life out of anybody that reads. And some of us we don't need Facebook to do that, though, do we? We come and you know those people. Now, what I hate is that, you know what? Sometimes I'm a fountain and sometimes I'm a drain. And that's probably more accurate about all of us rather than being one or the other. But in general, we know that there are drains and they just suck all the positivity out of places. There's always something. I'm not talking about being fake. I'm not talking about not being able to share struggles. No, that's part of being the ohana that we are. Well, I want a place that's real and authentic. So that's not what I'm talking about. But in general, are we the filled ones and the overflowing ones? Are we the ones that come and bless others? Is it positive? Are we a drain or a fountain? Other things that might let you know the difference there. We'll work on that later. Okay, we'll work on that later. Let me bring things to a close. I just want to introduce that idea and leave that question with you. Are you a fountain or a drain? Other ways we can talk about that. Are you a giver or a taker? And again, we're at work, at home, out in the world, but also at church. Are you a giver or a taker? This is true financially, time, commitment. What about your talents? Remember we talked about shape. We had a whole series on spiritual giftedness, and the S stood for spiritual gifts, that God's given you spiritual gifts. H in the word shape meant heart. What passion do you have? Who is it that you love to serve? You hate kids, but you love old people. Well, great. God's probably not trying to get you to serve kids. He probably wants you to serve old people. So you have a heart, a natural bent towards serving a certain group of people. A, abilities. You have certain abilities and skills. Are you a mechanic? Are you a handyman? Or do you cook? What skills do you have that you can use? We had 2 song leaders help lead our singing using skills that they have and are developing to bless. And so what skills do you have, again, specifically that we use here at church. P, personality. That helps guide us into how we might serve at church. E, experiences. What life experiences have you had that kind of says, you know what, that makes me want to serve in a particular way, in a particular place, a particular group of people. And so all of those things combined with this idea that if you're a fountain, because God's filling you to overflowing, then our church is strong, our fountain is beautiful, we come for refreshment and drinking and cooling off, and that when we come together, but also we have a place, hey, come play by the fountain. Come to the fountain. This is where refreshment is. And so that's why it's so important. Are you a giver or a taker? Are you a creator or a consumer? Okay, listen to what I mean by that. Do you come primarily to say, oh, I hope worship is good because I really need something? And if I leave and, I just didn't get anything out of that. I want you to get, we work hard for you to get, we want to pour, but we need more creators, we need more givers so that we balance out that thing about, oh, you know what, I'm the one struggling, I'm coming with a dry cup this week because of what my week is, and so I need you to be poured into me. And then whenever your cup is dry, you're going to need someone else to pour into you. And if we all come with empty cups, we're all going to be looking around at each other and we're all going to go home dry. So are you a giver or a taker? Are you here to help create a safe place of worship? Are you here to help create a place that's hospitable to us, but also to guests? Are you here to create our children's classes and our adult classes? Or are you here only to consume? Are you a creator or a consumer? We need more creators. The third one I want to give, the final one. Are you a worker or a worrier? Are you primarily a worker or a worrier? Worriers see the negative in everything, and what usually comes out is as complaining. Where workers see a problem and say, all right, we need to do something about that. What can we do? Here's what I can do. I need someone else to help me with that part. Great, let's pool our resources and let's do things. Let's make worship better. Let's make it more encouraging. Let's make sure our topics are something that is relevant for our people. Let's make sure our singing is the best it can be. Not as performance, but as participation of everyone. Let's be committed to being there, because when I'm not there, it's discouraging to other people. Let's work to be there and help create that environment. A lot of that is being on time or early. Because what happens, especially, this is true of our members too, but especially for our guests leave a little early because they don't know how to get here, so they're showing up at 5 or 10 till. You know what, 5 or 10 till, it's like me and Charlie are in the church building, okay? So we need people here early. There's going to be some things, if there's work going on, if there's people setting up things and preparing things, then there's going to be activity here. Now part of this is the leadership has not organized this well for you. We're going to start with leadership. We'll talk about church organization, our leadership team, ministry leaders and teams, and help organize that, okay? So there's really nothing extra to do today, but we're going to help organize that. Say, here's what we need. Has God given us workers for that? Now, this isn't to scare you. We'll get more detail later, okay? We're going to wrap it up. But I want to say, really come down to the idea of, if we don't have the workers for something, we don't do that thing. And some of the things we need to do is remedial work, okay? We got some, not bad problems. The fountain's still beautiful and going great. We just want to take it to the next level. But underneath the cement and the water, down in the pipes, we've got some corroded pipes. And so first we have to do some work that it won't make the fountain look any more beautiful, just help keep it going at its current rate. I'm a cheerleader for our kids' teachers. We've had the same teachers for a long time. We need teachers and helpers that go in and help create and work with them. And help give some of those workers a break and make sure that they're filled in. My point being that if we don't have people who are gifted, willing, or able to teach children's classes, we will quit having children's classes. We will take that as a sign from God of saying, I'm trying to take you in a different direction. Now, I don't think that, but I'm willing to play that card. All right? right? So we need that. And if we share that, then it's not a burden on anyone, or whatever it might be, all right? I'm not trying to recruit this morning. That's not quite what it's about, but it's kind of underneath all this, there's things we can do. Let me give you one final thought, and I want to pitch this next month. It's why I stay away from it, because it just kind of sounds like, hey, support the organization. Hey, we need, to reorganize, and that stuff just doesn't excite me, very, very honestly. I'd much rather talk about life and where you're out there working and pouring into you, so that you can go back out and let your light shine, so you can overflow into other people in real life. So that's why we keep things pretty much at a minimum here. That's why we don't have 50 different ministries going on. Because, no. If you want to do, let's start a men's fishing ministry. Like, no, we don't do that. See, because we're going to do the core stuff that we can do. Now, if you want to call 5 guys up and go fishing, awesome. Do that. You don't need our blessing. You don't need that kind of thing, or the women, whatever your version of that is. That's kind of sexist, isn't it? Women, if you want to go fishing, you go fishing too. Okay. In fact, you might catch more than some of the men. I've been fishing with them. Okay. We're going to keep it pretty core. Say, here's what we're about, and we free you then to go and do that ministry out in real life. Here's what I want to do. I want us to use this idea of, let's say we do not have a church, but we have a dream. Let's start a church. Let's start a new church. And so what we're going to do over at least the next month, that's our formal conversations. I think there could be other conversations outside of Sunday morning, that maybe from now to the end of the year, let's plant a church in January 2015. That means we have about 5 months to plan where that church will be, what that church will look like, how often that church will meet, what that church will do when it meets, to try to glorify God, build up believers, and bring others to Christ. Those are kind of the 3 core things. And everything we do, nothing is above questioning. Everything we do, does it help us do those things that we're trying to be as a church? And if it doesn't, we cut off the fat, we throw the dead weight off the ship. If it does, then we pour more resources into it, we put more focus on that, and we really build that up to where it really helps us propel forward in the mission of God. I want a church for people. I'll tell you, a family who, they're pretty active Christians. There's several things in their lives. I won't give details, and you might be able to figure out who they are. I hope they're a part of our group at some point. But there's several things in their lives that their language is pretty Christian-based. There's some other decisions in their life that they've made that are pretty Christian-based, but they're not part of a church at all. And I don't know, maybe if you've been a Christian very long, it's sort of, well, they need to be in church. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe not like that, but yeah, maybe they need to be in church, okay? But to me, I want to sit back and go, that's interesting. What is it about your faith, but also your church experience that says, you know what, I'm all about following God. I make sacrifices in my life to try to be more like Him, the people I'm trying to minister to. There's opportunities that I'm trying to serve God, I'm trying to raise my children to love Him. But church just doesn't play a big role, and we just don't spend a lot of time in that. What about a church for people who don't like church? What do we do? How would that be rich? What about a church for some of you who don't like church, but you're just here out of discipline and commitment, and we appreciate that. What is it that we can do? Because the purpose we come is to encourage one another. That's the purpose. And again, you say, well, hang on, David, aren't there a lot of other purposes? Well, let's let Scripture speak into that. But what can we do to encourage one another, to be this fountain, to be this mutual shooting water over each other, and this mutual refreshment for one another? Wouldn't you get excited? Doesn't that language excite you a little bit about, yeah, what if we created a church that did this, or could reach this group of people, or did these kind of things? We tried to remove every hurdle that got in the way of reaching those people and building one another up, and we just said, all right, how would we build a church? Most leaders don't care what you think about church. They're going to put on church, and they're going to say, you better be there, or I'm going to guilt you into feeling badly. What if it was a church that said, oh no, I helped create this church. I helped build this church. I'm using my gifts for this church. And then we say it's a church that anyone wants to come and be a part of. I think we're a big portion of the way there, friends. But I want to always be improving that and building that, letting God build us in that direction. Let me end. Two places in the book of John, two places in the Bible, Jesus himself uses the term living water. Through this month, through the end of the year, we're going to talk about it very communally. We're going to talk about it as a group, as a church, okay? As a group of people. That's all the church is. Church is not the building. Church is not some legal institution. It's the people, the gathering of the people. So it's very communal. At the same time, it's also individual. And Jesus twice uses this term, living water, in John chapter 4 and John chapter 7. In John chapter 4, he's there with this woman. She's a Samaritan woman, which is a different race than what Jesus was. And culture said, oh yeah, Jews, you hate Samaritans, so you don't talk. So she's a Samaritan, he's a Jew. But Jesus says, yeah, you know what? I'm not really fond of all the rules. I'm on a mission. And so he starts talking with her. Him being a Jewish teacher, a rabbi, also would not have spent a whole lot of time on women. Because women were seen very low at that time. Jesus again saying, I'm not real fond of the rules of culture. And he does much of his ministry in lifting up the place of women. Cracks me up, except it's so painful, but cracks me up whenever people read the words of Jesus and say he's anti-women. He says more to lift up women than he ever did to lift up men. He's your champion, ladies. I want you to know that. You have to understand culturally and what all that means, but huge shit. So he says, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to talk to you because of race, I don't care. I know I'm not supposed to talk to you because of gender, I don't care. I have something for you, and that's when he uses one of the phrases, I have living water for you. I won't tell you the whole story there, but they get to this conversation, and it says, ultimately it comes down to, I have living water for you. If you drink of this water, you never get thirsty again. And they have this conversation. Second time, John chapter 7, this is when Jesus defines what living water is. He actually says, living water is my Father's Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, that He will pour out into you. When we talk about being filled over here, that's what we're talking about, being filled with God's Spirit, His power. The Holy Spirit then produces what? Love and joy and peace in your life, gentleness and goodness, and all kinds of good stuff that then fill us and overflow onto others. We're on the way. We're on the way here. That's what we want to move forward. We want to move forward with that. So yes, it's communal, but it's also very individual. You have to join the community. Maybe you're here today, you're like, you know what, I'd like to be a part of building a church. I don't know much about all that stuff, but yeah, I've got some ideas. Just because I haven't been a Christian for 50 years, it doesn't mean I'm stupid. I have some ideas about how I wish church was different. Isn't there a way to be a community that matches more what Jesus was about rather than what the world says religion should be about? And that maybe it would look different. Maybe we wouldn't all come and sit in rows and listen to one guy talk for 30, 40, 55 minutes. Maybe it would look different than that. Maybe it would look the same. I don't know. But to say everything can be on the table. We're going to look to Scripture and see what He says we need to do. But you have to opt in. You have to opt in. The way He says it in John 4, He says, everyone who believes in me will have this living water in them. At some point you have to say, I've decided to believe in Jesus. I believe that He was who He said He was. I believe things when He gives me instruction and teaching. I believe Him, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to follow and obey that instruction. So at some point, the individual, you have to say, I want to be part of the community, the family of God that follows Jesus. If you've never made that decision, we'd love to help walk you through that. Stick around and eat. Would you come trade emails with me, get my phone number, we'll start texting, we'll meet later. If it's something that's just burning on your heart, I'll even put down my lunch to talk with you, okay? It's for you to make that decision. For those who've already made that decision, you're in. You're in. I'm sorry if you didn't read the fine print down at the bottom of the contract, but you signed it. You signed it. And it says, you know what, there's some work to do. In addition to the blessings you receive, there's some work to do. And in fact, there's even blessing in the work. It's kind of how God works. Be thinking about those things. Wouldn't you be excited to plant a church, to start a church, and build that church in a way, something that you always want to be at, help create it, and make a place that you're just wondering, who is God going to bring in the door for us today? Who is it that we can encourage and be a fountain for? So the question I want to bother you with this morning, we're done. Are you a fountain or a drain? I don't know about you. I want to be a fountain. At church. But even as you go out into the world, go to work this week saying, I'm going to be a fountain. Go into your homes this week saying, I'm going to be a fountain, not a drain. And you come back to church next week saying, at my church, I'm going to be a fountain. Help me see what that looks like. Let's stand and sing our song.